"You'll never leave," he said, one hand behind his head, the other holding the TV remote like a crown. I didn't say a word, just looked at him. Same man who'd stolen 22 years of peace and still expected a thank you after dinner. He thought silence meant submission. But mine? Mine was a slow goodbye. My name is Denise Wallace. I'm 48 years old, and this is the story of how I found peace the day I stopped asking permission to be free. We lived just outside Tupelo, Mississippi. Small house off County Road 32, gravel drive, satellite dish that barely picked up Sunday night football. You know the kind, where folks wave from porches and the Dollar General stays packed on Saturdays. The remote clicked. The game hummed. He didn't see me, just service. Dinner, clean shirts, quiet. I was a third-grade teacher at Pine Hollow Elementary, 20 years in the same classroom, name on the plaque outside room 104, laminated posters, glitter still under the reading table, a sharpener that squealed Mondays, a window that rattled when the buses woke. I loved my kids, not just the students, though Lord knows they kept me laughing, but my two real ones, Janelle and Marcus, grown now, living in Memphis. They used to call every Sunday like clockwork. Used to. Not since the last incident. Not since their daddy told them, plain and cold, "Y'all don't need to be meddling in grown folks' business." He said it at the doorway, one hand on the jamb like a bouncer. They stood there with overnight bags while I held a dish towel drying nothing. They didn't stop loving me. They just didn't know how to help. When love learns helplessness, it gets quiet. It goes to voicemail. It becomes just checking in texts with extra hearts. Can't blame them. I didn't know either. You can live in a maze so long, the map looks like sinning. Leonard Wallace wasn't always like that. We met at a 4th of July cookout in 1998, back when gas was $1.06 a gallon and Janet Jackson ruled every radio station in Mississippi. Fireworks popped over the fairgrounds like somebody shaking coins in a glass jar. He had on a Dodgers cap, faded jeans, and smelled like car wax and aqua velva. Said he worked at the county motor pool. Said he liked a woman who knew how to shut down a room just by walking in. I should have known then. It wasn't admiration, it was possession. His eyes did a quick inventory. Hair, waist, smile, and softened like he'd already signed the receipt. The control started slow. Not fists. Never that. Leonard was too smart for bruises. Bruises talk. Paperwork louder, Leonard whispered. It was always emotional. Always quiet. At first, it was little things. "You don't need to wear lipstick to church, baby. The Lord don't care about all that. You gonna cook pork chops again? I was kinda hoping for something real. Why you always letting your mama get in your head?" Small edits to the woman I was offered like favors, like he was polishing me. He didn't like me seeing my mama too much, said she was too opinionated. Didn't like my sister Priscilla calling after 9 p.m. Didn't like me hanging with the other teachers from work. "They don't respect women who stay home," he'd say. He started telling little lies about my friends until I questioned memory. Isolation doesn't slam a door. It eases it closed and asks if you're comfortable. So I shrunk, little by little. I folded pieces of myself like laundry and put them on high shelves, stopped wearing color, cut my hair into something manageable, started making dinner by 5:30, exactly how he liked. No onions, extra gravy, canned corn only. I learned his moods like recipes. Whistle low, give space. Jokes turn mean, agree and smile. Cowboys lose, no questions till morning. He never hit me, but he hit something deeper. He made me apologize for thinking out loud. He made me doubt compliments like they were scams. He taught me how to disappear while standing up. By year 15, I wasn't even sure who I was anymore, just a voice inside a house Leonard built with rules instead of love. I moved like I was sneaking even when no one was watching. He handled the money. He paid the bills. He told people I didn't worry about all that. He shook hands I never saw and signed papers I never read. "Baby, this ain't your lane," he'd say, kissing my forehead like a benediction and a gag. The thing is, I did. I worried every time he said the mortgage was fine, but wouldn't show me a statement. I worried every time the debit card acted funny at Walmart. I worried when I found out the life insurance policy no longer had my name on it, just his brother's. I worried when he started refusing paper receipts and loving autopay. Worry moved in, sat on the bed's edge, slept light. The worst part? I stayed. I stayed and folded towels like staying was a job with benefits. I stayed and told myself, he's stressed. It's the economy. It's the season. I stayed because leaving felt like throwing a grenade into my children's family pictures. Because the world teaches women like me, black, middle-aged, polite, that loyalty is currency, even when it bankrupts you. We tithe our silence and call it faith. But something shifted last Thanksgiving. The house smelled like sweet potatoes, collard greens, and tension. I had my good dishes out, tablecloth with the sunflowers, Macy's clearance. I put on soft gospel, volume low. The kids came down from Memphis, brought store-bought pie. Leonard barely said hello. He sat there carving turkey, like he was doing us a favor. Janelle watched his hands and bit her lip. Janelle asked if we ever thought of traveling. Leonard laughed. Denise ain't going nowhere. She married to this kitchen. Y'all know that. He looked at me when he said it, as if I might nod, as if the kitchen might nod too. They laughed too, light, nervous chuckles. But I didn't. My laugh stayed behind my teeth. I just stared at him, turkey knife in hand, thinking, you really think you own me? The ceiling fan clicked like a slow metronome. After dinner, I packed leftovers, labeling containers with masking tape. That night, I stood at the sink scrubbing casserole dishes when Leonard walked up behind me and said, "You got a good setup here, baby. Some women would kill for this." His breath warm on my neck, his words cold. That was the moment. Not a scream, not a slap, not a breakdown, just a quiet truth sliding through my chest like cold steel. My reflection looked like a woman I knew once. She blinked back. He thought I should be grateful. Grateful for a cage with curtains. Grateful for a love that kept receipts. That's when I knew he'd never let me leave. Because in his mind, I wasn't even real. Just furniture. Nice to have. Easy to ignore. Heavy to move. So I started planning. Not loud, not messy, just deliberate. The kind of planning that fits inside grocery runs and faculty meetings. The kind that looks like minding your business. I opened a P.O. box over in Belden, under my maiden name, Denise Robbins. The clerk didn't ask questions. She slid a peppermint toward me. My hand shook just enough to scratch the form. Then I opened a checking account at First Bancorp. Sat with a young teller who called me ma'am. Got myself a debit card that I hid inside my choir robe zipper. It lay against my chest during total praise, small and smooth. Every week, I diverted $120 from my paycheck. I changed my direct deposit like I was just updating an address. HR never noticed. I packed that card with groceries and returned them for cash at a different store. I sold a ring his mama gave me and told him the clasp broke. I Googled how to pull equity records from county property office. At midnight, volume down, brightness low. I learned he'd taken a second mortgage. Without me. $38,000. Gone. The number clanged every time I rinsed rice, and I didn't say a word. Not then. Silence is a bank. I kept making deposits. At school, I taught long division and use your words, while mine hid in a P.O. box. Little hands cut paper snowflakes. I cut a new life out of routine. I learned routes that dodged his bank. I memorized his truck's sound on the gravel and the seconds before the back door creaked. That Christmas, he gave me a used crock pot. Still had grease stains from God knows where. No box, no receipt, just a shrug. Works fine. I smiled, thanked him, cooked dinner in it the next night. Because it was the last meal I was ever gonna cook in that house. I scrubbed the pot like I could erase its story. I stirred stew and tasted endings. That night, he slept with the TV on. I lay there counting steps instead of sheep. From bed to closet, hall, back, door. Car. I mapped the creeks. The one near the bathroom complains, step wide. In the mornings, I practice leaving without leaving. One small bag packed, then put back. A notes app titled Groceries that was really exits. Birth certificate, social, spare key, 3 photos, choir schedule. I didn't change events. I changed how I moved. Same house. New route through it. On the first Monday of January, Frost made lace on the mailbox. Leonard asked about pancakes, and I made oatmeal instead. He complained, and I stirred. "You'll never leave," he said. I served oatmeal and watched the steam rise. At school, a little boy drew a picture of a house with no doors. "Where's the door, baby?" I asked. He shrugged. "It's on the back," he said. I went home and looked for mine. One night, Mama called from Jackson. Her voice was thin as a ribbon and strong. "You sound tired," she said. "I'm fine," I lied. "Fine don't sound like you," she said. "Denise means devoted, not disappeared." We sat in the mile of silence between us until I said, "I hear you." "Good," she said. "Then make a plan you can live with." So I did. I made copies of my school records, printed pay stubs, saved screenshots. I cleaned the car, filled the tank when I could, and moved one book at a time into the trunk. On the outside, nothing changed. I still brought sweet tea to the couch, laughed at the same reruns, folded socks heel tucked, how he liked. On the inside, I built a bridge plank by plank, a P.O. box, a debit card, $120 a week, a file folder marked recipes that wasn't. The night before I left, Leonard fell asleep early. The TV mumbled about storms. The map burned red. I washed my face and looked long at the mirror. Fine lines, a mouth that didn't tremble, eyes that had finally stopped begging. I walked to the closet and touched each hanger like a goodbye. The good dress, the church skirt, the t-shirt from the fair where Marcus won a goldfish that outlived cents. I folded 2 outfits, nothing he'd miss until he needed to make it hurt. I set my alarm for 4:20 a.m., laid the debit card on my ID, turned my wedding ring upside down like a tiny overturned bowl. Then I slept in a house that thought it had me. When the alarm trembled the dark, I slid out of bed and into my quiet. The world before dawn is honest. I tiptoed through my own life like a guest. Keys, bag, folder, phone. The hallway creaked and I shifted my weight to the baseboard that doesn't. I paused at the photo wall, touched my children's faces with 2 fingers. A blessing. A promise. I opened the back door and let the cold kiss my cheeks. Gravel under tires. Breath on glass. The heater whining awake. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The house could keep the curtains. At the end of County Road 32, the sky turned the soft gray of a fresh eraser. I turned left toward Belden and the bank that knew my other name. The radio was low. Somewhere, a choir was still singing. I waited at the first stop sign and let 3 cars go. Not because I had to, but because I could. The sun found me in the driver's seat. My name settled back into my bones. And somewhere, in a kitchen with a used crock-pot, a man rolled over and reached for an empty pillow. He would call my phone, my name, his disbelief. I kept driving. Because silence, when it finally speaks, doesn't shout. It leaves. I started packing in February. Not the loud kind of packing. No tape guns, no cardboard towers, no neighbors noticing. Just quiet sorting, one drawer at a time. The kind of packing you do with a prayer in your chest and an ache that feels half holy, half haunted. While Leonard watched ESPN in the den, I was folding my life into hefty bags in the back of the closet. Every zip felt like a secret heartbeat, every fold a whispered, "Not much longer." First thing I packed? My diploma from Jackson State University. The one he once said looked nice for decoration, but didn't mean much since I was just a teacher. He said it laughing, one hand on a beer, the other on the armrest like a throne. And I laughed too, back then, because when you're surviving, you learn to laugh at your own disrespect. I wrapped that diploma in my old choir robe. The same robe I wore the year I sang "His Eye is on the Sparrow" and believed it. Funny how things you used to wear to feel holy end up cushioning what they tried to break. I pressed it to my chest for a moment, said a small prayer. Lord, let me keep my mind and my name. I downloaded an app that let me monitor the county deed office. I didn't even know you could do that, but Google did. And that app? It showed me truth in PDF form. Turns out Leonard had pulled 2 loans against the house over 5 years. Never told me, never asked me to co-sign, just forged my middle initial into a shadow. R became P. Close enough to fool the system, not close enough to fool my spirit. The house I kept clean, the porch I swept every Saturday, the garden I planted with marigolds and hope, gone behind my back, in his name only. He told his cousin it was just to consolidate some things. I found the paperwork. There was nothing consolidated, just withdrawals, big ones. $8,200 at Harrah's Tunica Casino, $2,600 at a jewelry store in South Haven. But no jewelry ever came home. No new watch, no bracelet, just that same smell of beer and body spray, that same smirk that said, "You wouldn't understand." By March, I stopped crying. The tears dried up somewhere between disbelief and exhaustion. I stopped flinching every time he touched my shoulder in passing, stopped checking the oven twice before bed just because he liked it spotless, stopped cooking before he got home. I turned the gospel station up instead, loud. Let Yolanda Adams ride through those walls like she owned the lease. If, Leonard complained, I said, it helps me grade papers. But really, it helped me breathe. Sunday mornings, I'd open all the windows, let the air smell like something free. He'd grunt from the recliner, "Turn that down, baby, my head hurt." And I'd smile, turning it up just a notch more. Headache or not, he was going to hear freedom warming up its voice. I got a POA from my mama filed with the county clerk in Pontotoc. "Power of attorney," the lady behind the counter said. I nodded. "For safety." She looked up, her eyes soft. "For strength," she corrected. And maybe she was right. I called Janelle and Marcus on the prepaid flip phone I kept in my purse. $29.99 at Family Dollar. No contract, no trace. I told them just enough. Not the whole thing, just, "I'm handling some things, baby. I'll call when it's time." They didn't ask when. They knew. My babies knew not to press. They grew up reading silence like scripture. Leonard grew suspicious in April. "You been moving funny," he said one night, toothpaste foam hanging from his lip. "You cheatin' or something?" He laughed after, but his eyes didn't. I didn't even flinch. "Cheatin' ain't my style, Leonard." He tilted his head, smirked. "Yeah, you too predictable for that." Then he spat, wiped his mouth, and turned off the light. He didn't know freedom was a solo act. Didn't know I'd already left him in every way that mattered. The next Saturday, I sold my wedding ring, $480 at Delta Gold Exchange on Main Street. The man behind the counter squinted at the diamond, said, "A little cloudy, but it'll sell." I said, "Just like the marriage." He didn't laugh, but I did. First real one in months. I booked the moving truck for May 10th, 7:00 a.m. Penske, not U-Haul, because Penske didn't park bright orange in your driveway. I paid in cash, counted twice, folded the receipt into my wallet like a prayer card, got the confirmation number tattooed in my mind like scripture. Then I packed faster, not just clothes and books, but documents, originals, my birth certificate, my teacher's pension statement, my social security card, and the photo album from 2006, Janelle's graduation, Marcus's first prom, their faces mid-laugh, mid-hope, not a single picture of Leonard after that year. I left the rest. The couch we picked from Big Lots, the china set from his mama that never fit my taste, the wedding album that felt like someone else's dream. If the past wanted him, it could have him. May 9th, Leonard asked what I wanted for our anniversary. He was sitting on the porch, barefoot, beer sweating in his hand. I was watering the azaleas, watching the dirt darken like bruises. He said, "You want something nice?" Maybe a necklace? I said, "A quiet morning." He smirked. "That's easy. You know I sleep late on Saturdays." I smiled. "I know." That was the last honest thing he ever said to me. I barely slept that night. Laid in bed beside him, heart drumming like a choir tambourine. His snores filled the room. The same rhythm every night, a bass line of entitlement. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning shadows over us. I counted each blade, each second. Freedom has its own time zone. That bed, I paid it off from a Sears catalog. $49 a month for 12 months. He never even knew that. He thought it came with the house. Like me, at 5:58 a.m. I slipped out of bed, feet on cold floor. The air still smelled like rain and leftovers. I put on my jeans, the faded blue ones I wore on field trips, pulled on a t-shirt that said Soft Power, the brand I always dreamed of launching, tied my headscarf, brushed my teeth slow, looked in the mirror and said, "You're almost there." The truck pulled in at 6:47, low rumble down the gravel. I didn't need an alarm. My peace woke me up. The driver didn't even honk, just waved through the window. He saw it in my eyes, that kind of quiet that only comes when a woman's done pretending. I didn't pack everything, didn't want to. I left the cast iron skillet, the church fan from Ment Calvary Missionary Baptist, the wooden spoon my mama gave me, not because I didn't want them, but because I wanted nothing that connected me to who I had to be in that house. I wanted to start clean. I wanted to smell like new air. At 7:03, I turned the keys on the kitchen table, next to a plate of scrambled eggs, 2 slices of toast, and the last cup of coffee I'd ever pour for him. I even buttered the toast, not for him, for closure. The legal separation papers sat underneath, signed, stamped, ready for filing. On top, a sticky note that said, "I finally heard myself, and I'm choosing her." I stood there for a second. The clock ticked like a heartbeat. The refrigerator hummed. The sun slipped through the blinds and hit the papers just right. I thought, this is what peace looks like. Not loud, not cinematic, just steady. I closed the front door softly, didn't slam, didn't cry, didn't look back. Just climbed in that truck like it was a chariot. The seat was cold, the morning air sharp. I started the engine, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Thank you, God." Rolled down County Road. 32. Sun in my rear view, new life in the passenger seat. And for the first time in 22 years, I didn't feel late for anything. I didn't stop driving until I hit Oxford. The miles blurred into memory, highway lines like heartbeats, counting the distance between who I was and who I was about to become. Somewhere near Pontotoc, I pulled over just to breathe. The world smelled like pine, diesel, and rain-soaked earth. I hadn't realized how quiet the sky could sound when it didn't have to hold anyone's shouting. When I finally reached the city limits, it was close to noon. Oxford shimmered under. The sun like something trying to start over, too. I pulled into the apartment complex. Sycamore Flats right off Jackson Avenue. Nothing fancy. Just 2 bedrooms, a walk-in closet, and a balcony that faced the sunrise. The siding was beige. The railing had a little rust on it. The air smelled faintly of magnolia and laundry detergent from someone drying towels down the hall. To me, it looked like freedom wrapped in stucco. The manager, a woman named Brenda with box braids and silver hoops, handed me the keys without asking a single personal question. Didn't need to know why I was starting over. Just that my deposit cleared and I had steady income. Her smile was businesslike, but kind. "Unit 2B's been waiting for somebody with good energy," she said. I didn't know if she said that to everyone, but I let myself believe her. For the first time in years, I breathed easy. No footsteps to monitor. No remote clicking through silence like a metronome for control. Just me. A woman and her new beginning. I unpacked, slow. Box by box. Every item I touched, I asked, does this belong to the woman I'm becoming? If the answer was no, it went in the trash. That included the sweater Leonard bought me our 5th anniversary. The one 2 sizes too small, like he wanted me invisible. Gone. The house slippers he picked out because they looked quiet. Gone. The black nightgown he said made me look obedient. Gone. The act of letting go felt holy. I didn't need an altar, just a trash chute and the courage to drop things that had owned me. Every thud echoing down that metal tube sounded like a hymn. I hung my soft power t-shirt in the closet like it was silk, pressed it flat with my palms. It wasn't just a brand idea, it was a declaration. My power didn't need to yell, it just needed a door to walk through. Within 2 weeks, I was back in the classroom. Different school. Madison Creek Elementary, same grade, different air. The halls smelled like crayons and floor wax. The laughter was pure, unsupervised. My new classroom had tall windows and chipped desks, but it had light, real light. The principal, Ms. Langston, was a tall woman with gray curls and bright lipstick. She looked me in the eye when she shook my hand, said, "We're lucky to have someone with your experience." No micropause, no pity, just respect. I almost cried in the break room that afternoon, not because of what she said, but because I believed her, because I hadn't heard genuine kindness in so long it sounded like music I'd forgotten the lyrics to. I sent Janelle and Marcus my new number, told them I was safe, that I had landed on my feet. They drove down that weekend, pulled into the parking lot in Marcus's old silver Altima, trunk full of care. They brought groceries, light bulbs, and one of those fuzzy bathroom mats I used to like. Janelle stood in the kitchen, arms folded, scanning the walls, the smell, the space. "It's small," she said finally, "but it smells like you again." I laughed, pulling her close. "That's because it's mine." Marcus grinned, loading the fridge like a man stalking hope. "You need a better couch, Ma," he teased. "This one squeaks like an old preacher." "I'll get there," I said. "One piece at a time." He nodded. "You already halfway there." That night, we ate takeout on the floor. Shrimp fried rice, sweet tea, and laughter. It wasn't much, but it felt like a feast. After they left, I stood at the window watching their taillights fade down Jackson Avenue. No tears, just gratitude. On Sundays, I started going to New Hope Fellowship, smaller than Matt Calvary, but the spirit still moved. The choir only had 6 people, but they sang like 600. The pastor, Reverend Tolliver, preached short and sweet, said everything twice like a man making sure grace landed. One of the usher ladies, Miss Pearl, gave me a side hug the first morning I came. She wore white gloves and a hat with feathers that meant business. "I seen you before," she said, tilting her head, "but now you glowin'. Must be peace." I smiled, trying to be. She winked. "Don't try, just rest in it. Peace, not perfection, not revenge, just peace." But peace has visitors. Sometimes they knock. 6 months after I left, on a regular fall Sunday, I walked into church and froze. Leonard, standing in the back, black shirt, pressed pants, same smug posture, like nothing had happened, like he was entitled to witness my healing. My throat went dry. The music blurred. My body remembered before my mind did. That instinct to shrink, to soften, to survive. But I didn't. I stood tall, sang through the last hymn like the lyrics were armor. He didn't say anything after service, just followed me out to the lot, walking slow like the devil on his lunch break. "Denise," he said, like my name still belonged to his mouth. I turned. The autumn light hit him sideways. He looked smaller. Not physically, but spiritually. The kind of small you only notice after you've grown. "You really left," he said, like he was just catching up to the plot. "I didn't think you would." I didn't answer, just unlocked my car. He stepped closer. "I miss you." I nodded. I miss who I used to be, too. He blinked, searching for the woman who used to explain herself, but she was gone. Then I got in my car and pulled off. Didn't even check the rear view. That night, I sat on my balcony with a cup of chamomile tea, watched the sky turn orange, then lavender, then deep Mississippi black. The crickets sang, the streetlights flickered on. I breathed in quiet that didn't need permission, and I thought, he's not the villain of my story. He's just not the author anymore. The next morning, I woke up lighter, the kind of light you can taste, like citrus and forgiveness. Work became joy again. The kids' laughter no longer echoed off pain. It bounced off possibility. I started bringing flowers to class every Monday, tulips, daisies, whatever was on sale. The students started calling it Miss Wallace's happiness table. I smiled easier, slept deeper, ate slower. Then I did something brave. I started a side hustle, handmade soap and affirmation candles. Called it Soft Power by Denise. I made them in my kitchen, shea butter melting on the stove, lavender oil, coconut milk, rose petals I crushed by hand. Each batch smelled like freedom and progress. I sold 5 bars the first week at the Oxford Sunday Market. A woman in a denim jacket picked one up and said, "This lavender one smells like boundaries." I laughed. Exactly. I started writing little affirmations on the tags. Peace is a full sentence. Soft don't mean weak. Quiet can still conquer. They sold faster than I could make them. I joined a book club, started walking in the mornings before school, gray hoodie, headphones, the sound of my own breath steady and sure. Got a library card. Paid my bills without asking anyone. Even treated myself to a pair of white sneakers I'd once talked myself out of. And every night I lit one of my own candles before bed. Let the scent fill the room, lavender, lemon balm, safety. I had my silence. But now it was choice, not punishment. And I wasn't hiding anymore. I was home. It was a Thursday when I ran into him again, Leonard. The sky was that washed-out Mississippi gray, the kind that smells like rain but never commits. I'd stopped by Regions Bank on North Lamar to make a vendor deposit. End-of-week routine, slow line, air conditioning humming over the sound of people sighing into their phones. And there he was, not in church this time, in line, 10 feet away. He looked older, not aged exactly, just worn. Like time had been quietly peeling at the edges of his pride. His skin had lost that oily confidence it used to wear. His posture, once so rigid, had a dent in it now, like life had leaned on him a little too long. He had on the same jacket I bought him back in 2014, navy with those elbow patches that made him look like a man pretending to read the Wall Street Journal. Clearance rack, J.C. Penney. Still had the thread loose on the left cuff. He never fixed it, just let it fray. That's Leonard for you. Pride so big it couldn't bend down for a needle. He turned around and our eyes met. For a second, just a flicker, I saw confusion, then recognition, then that old smirk trying to claw its way back onto his face, the one that used to say, "I still got you right where I want you." "Denise," he said, like a question, like a claim. I nodded once. "Leonard." His mouth twitched like he expected a different version of me to answer, the one who spoke softly, apologized for things that weren't her fault, who would have filled the silence for him. But I didn't. He looked me up and down like he didn't recognize what he was seeing. Different hair. Short, copper brown, free from his preferences. Different shoes. Block heels. Unapologetic height. No wedding band. No shadow. "I heard you moved," he said, voice caught somewhere between curiosity and resentment. "I did. To Oxford?" I didn't answer that part. Didn't owe him a geography lesson. He hesitated, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "You look good." I smiled, not for the compliment, but for the freedom to ignore it. "I'm late for a vendor deposit," I said, holding up the manila envelope marked in black Sharpie. "Soft Power by Denise. Weekly sales." His eyes flickered like a bad bulb. "Vendor?" "Soap, candles, body butter," I said. "Things that help people smell like peace." He blinked. That word, peace, hit him like a foreign language. "Didn't know you had time for all that." I leaned closer, not enough for it to look dramatic, just enough for truth to land. "You never asked what I had time for, Leonard. You just decided." Then I stepped forward in line. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. I heard his phone buzz as I handed my envelope to the teller. That same ringtone I used to hate. The one that always interrupted dinner. Sleep. Peace. When I walked out, the sunlight hit my face so hard it felt like applause. That night, I lit one of my own candles. Cashmere sage. Soft, clean, with that hint of something new and expensive. The flame danced steady, unbothered by the ceiling fan. I wrote an inventory list by hand, slow and careful. 4 custom orders to fill, 2 weekend pop-ups scheduled, 1 local boutique asking for a wholesale sample. I was building something, with my hands, with my name, with no permission slips from anyone. The smell of melted soy wax and sage clung to the apartment walls. It didn't smell like hiding. It smelled like purpose. A few weeks later, I found a certified letter in my mailbox. Return address, Leonard Wallace. The handwriting was the same as the one that used to sign checks and dictate my worth. I almost laughed. Even his letters looked controlling. All caps, heavy pen pressure, like he wanted to make sure his words didn't escape. I opened it on the balcony, rocking slow in the thrift store glider I'd painted lavender. The afternoon was humid. Cicadas screaming like gossipers who didn't know how to stop. It was short. 4 sentences. I didn't realize what I was doing until it was too late. If you ever want to talk, I'd listen this time. I still got your old choir robe. It don't smell like you anymore. That was it. No apology, no ownership, just a reach. I read it twice, then a third time. Tried to find the part where he sounded sorry. There wasn't one, just regret dressed up as humility. I folded the letter and slid it behind my tax receipts, not out of sentiment, just in case I ever needed a reminder of how silence sounds when a man finally hears it. It's hollow, like an echo too late to matter. The next Sunday, Miss Pearl caught me by the arm after service. Her perfume smelled like peppermint oil and choir robes that had seen too many revivals. "Baby," she said, "you ever think about leading one of the women's workshops? We're planning a session next month. Faith After Fire. I told the committee you were the one to teach it." I blinked. "Me?" She laughed, waving her gloved hand. "Who else? Ain't nobody seen you reclaim that much ground without making a fuss. You walk in peace and folks feel convicted just standing next to you." I smiled. "Miss Pearl, I'm no preacher." "Don't need to be," she said. "Just tell the truth about what you survived." So I did. At that workshop, I stood in front of 12 women in folding chairs and told them the truth about slow goodbyes, about how silence ain't weakness, it's strategy, about how peace doesn't show up with trumpets, it shows up when you finally stop trying to earn love that don't exist. Afterward, Miss Pearl hugged me tight. "You did good, baby," she said. I whispered, "Sometimes a closed door makes more noise than a slammed one." She smiled. Amen to that. By July, I had a table set up at the 4th of July market in the Oxford Town Square, the same square Leonard once walked me through after a movie night years ago, hand heavy on my shoulder, saying, "Dreams are for people who don't have bills." Now here I was, my own banner flapping in the summer heat, gold letters across white fabric, soft power, the table neat, candles lined like soldiers, price tags handwritten in cursive. A small Bluetooth speaker played old-school Anita Baker under the chatter of kids and food vendors. My friend Patrice from the church helped me run the stand. She fanned herself with a church bulletin and said, "Girl, you done come a long way from casserole duty." I laughed. Now I'm cooking peace instead. A woman walked up, mid-50s, straw hat, sundress sticking to her back. She picked up a candle, sniffed deep. "This one smells like my grandma's house," she said, voice soft, eyes far away. I smiled. "That means it's working." She bought 2. Paid cash. Told me she'd come back next week for more. When she walked off, Patrice whispered, "See, you healing folks through scent now?" Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't just selling candles. Maybe I was selling closure, one jar at a time. The sun dipped lower, throwing orange light over the square. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and looked out at the crowd. Laughing families, gospel music from the stage, the smell of funnel cakes and roasted corn. Freedom didn't look like fireworks that year. It looked like me, standing behind a table with my own name on it. I kept my phone on silent that day, not because I was hiding, but because I was finally loud enough without it. The following Thanksgiving, the house smelled like sage, sweet potatoes, and quiet. The oven had been humming since 7 that morning, filling the air with cinnamon, butter, and something deeper. The peace of a woman who finally had time to breathe. It wasn't the heavy silence of years past, not the kind that pressed on your chest until it hurt. This was the soft kind, the kind that settled on your shoulders like a warm shawl and whispered, "You made it." Janelle and Marcus came down the night before, arms full of grocery bags, laughter already spilling in from the hallway. They brought their partners, store-bought desserts again. The same lemon pie from Kroger that always leaned sideways in the box, and a bottle of wine with a twist-off cap. "Don't judge us," Marcus said, holding it up like a trophy. "Long as it pours," I said, taking it with a grin. We laughed until the dressing burned. My little apartment wasn't built for hosting. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, and a kitchen the size of a prayer. But I didn't care. I pulled out every folding chair I owned, borrowed 2 more from Miss Pearl, and made do with a card table for the kids. The main table was dressed in mismatched plates and Dollar Tree wine glasses with gold rims that looked fancier than they cost. Nobody complained. They said it felt like home. Janelle helped me mash sweet potatoes, humming Anita Baker under her breath. Marcus kept sneaking bites of turkey skin and pretending I didn't see. His partner tried to fix the Wi-Fi twice before realizing there was no password. Just click and hope. It was loud, unpolished, perfect. After dinner, we cleared the plates and started a game of Uno. Marcus cheated like always, tucking an extra draw 4 under the pile. "Boy, I saw that," Janelle yelled. He grinned, smug. "Ain't no proof." We all groaned. Someone threw a napkin. Laughter bounced off every wall until my stomach hurt. That's when it hit me. I hadn't thought about Leonard all day. Not his voice, not his rules, not his cold silences after he spent money without asking. He used to occupy every corner of my mind, even the parts meant for peace. His absence used to echo louder than his presence. But now, he was just gone. A bad echo in a room I'd already repainted. When the last dish was washed and the candles melted low, everyone drifted to bed. I stayed up, alone but not lonely. The apartment smelled like nutmeg and laughter. My feet ached, but in that sweet, earned way. I lit one of my cinnamon and clarity candles and watched the flame breathe. Then I turned on the gospel station. Mahalia Jackson's voice came through the speaker, smooth, steady, timeless. How I got over. I sat on the couch with a cup of mint tea and my old journal, the same one I'd carried since before the move. The pages were wrinkled, coffee-stained, honest. Flipping back, I found last year's Thanksgiving entry, the day Leonard leaned behind me at the sink and said, "You got a good setup here, baby?" I'd written only one line underneath it. He thinks peace is what he allows me to have. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I picked up my pen and wrote beneath it, "Peace is what I no longer negotiate." The words felt like a seal, like closure signing itself. A few days later, I stopped by Pine Grove Flea Market, not to sell, just to walk. The air was cool and sharp with fried dough and wood smoke. Vendors lined up with tables of honey jars, crocheted scarves, and old gospel records. I saw a woman about my age, maybe a little older, selling handmade quilts stitched from denim and old t-shirts. She looked tired in that way that still tries to smile. We started talking. She said her husband passed 5 years ago and she'd been trying to figure out who she was since. Her eyes glistened like she was confessing a sin instead of a truth. I didn't offer advice. I just smiled, reached into my tote, and handed her one of my soaps, Chamomile Strength. She looked at it, thumb tracing the gold label. "What's this for?" she asked. For remembering, I said. Sometimes we ain't rebuilding. We just remembering who we were before the world forgot us. Her chin trembled. She pressed the soap to her heart. I needed that. So did I. That Sunday, Miss Pearl caught me before service and said, "Don't you run off after benediction." I laughed. "Miss Pearl, what you got me doing now?" She just smiled. "You'll see." After announcements, she called me up to the front. "We got a praise report," she said into the mic, gesturing for me to come forward. I shook my head, mouthing, "No, ma'am." She wouldn't have it. "This woman right here," she said, pointing at me, "walked through the fire and didn't smell like smoke. That's testimony enough." The congregation clapped. Some stood. A few wiped tears. I bowed my head, heat rushing up behind my eyes. It was the loudest applause I'd ever received, and I hadn't said a single word. On my way home, I stopped for gas on Main Street. That's when I saw it. Leonard's old Chevy Impala still had the dent on the rear bumper. The one I covered with duct tape back in 2011 still had that same bumper sticker, "Real men provide." He was leaning against it, phone in hand, looking up just as I drove by. For a split second, our eyes met through the windshield. He looked stuck. Like time had stopped moving for him when I left. Same car, same town, same story. But me? I was on my way home, and home wasn't tied to his name anymore. I didn't stop, didn't wave, didn't even blink. Because some goodbyes don't need repetition. A year later, my life looked nothing like I imagined, and everything like it should. I started leading workshops on financial freedom. After 40, every seat filled, women taking notes, heads nodding. I taught them how to open accounts in their own names, check property records, set up emergency funds, and never apologize for wanting control. My small Etsy shop, Soft Power by Denise, started selling out monthly. The best seller, Resilience Butter, lavender, shea, and lemon balm. Soft enough for skin, strong enough to remember. One Friday, I opened my laptop and nearly dropped my tea. A local lifestyle blog had featured me. Soft Power, how one Mississippi woman turned silence into her superpower. They included photos from my booth at the town square, me smiling in my yellow apron, candles lined in rows like blessings. I framed the article, not because I needed the praise, but because it reminded me I was never weak for staying. I was patient while I gathered the tools to go, and I went. The last thing Leonard ever texted me was on a Tuesday. It came at 8:42 p.m. "You really gone, huh?" I stared at it for a moment. The old me might have answered, out of guilt or nostalgia or the lie that closure requires a conversation. But I didn't respond, not because I was angry, not because I was scared, but because the woman I am now doesn't speak in circles. She doesn't chase understanding from people who never tried to offer it. She just moves forward. So if you ask me what freedom sounds like, it don't shout, it don't slam doors, it don't come with apologies or speeches. Sometimes it pulls into your driveway in a rented truck and lets the engine do the talking. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.